With Lesson 7 we begin the book of Exodus. Exodus, where we meet Moses, and where we have the dramatic high point of the Old Testament. On our map of here, which is like a map, we have the line that is our timeline. We saw that in 1700 BC was the time of Joseph, and when we come to Moses, it's 400 years later. In that 400 years, where the people of Israel, the descendants of Jacob, have become a vast number of people living in Egypt. They came in as friends. They were well taken care of. As time goes by, the pharaohs become anxious about how they multiply. They are between Egypt and some of its enemies, and they're fearful that if those enemies attack, Israel and their vast numbers of people will turn against Pharaoh, and therefore they are beginning to be put under subjection. Pharaoh begins to use them for his great building projects, because the Pharaoh now in power is Ramses II, who has a vast ego and is building huge monuments to himself all over Egypt. These people become very enslaved. And Moses, one of the babies born during the edict against all males being allowed to live, Ramses wants to be sure to curtail the birth of any possible soldiers against him. And Moses has only been saved by being put into the bulrushes. You know the story, how the princess finds him and adopts him. This is to be a wonderful thing, because Moses will have the best education of anyone in the Old Testament. He will have all the resources in his growing up years that princess can provide for him. And it's only because he observes a fellow Jew being beaten and then rises to kill the Egyptian and buries him in the sand that he must flee Egypt. He flees into the Sinai, and there he finds a home with a Midianite, and he will marry a daughter, Zipporah, and have 2 sons. He will be a keeper of sheep, herder, with this family, and one day while he is out with the sheep, he notices a very strange sight, a burning bush. Yet the bush is not consumed, and when he comes close he is told to take his shoes off. It is holy ground. And we have the God of the universe revealing himself to Moses, chiefly by giving him his name. This is most significant. The name is the person, and God has opened himself to Moses in a very dramatic way by giving him his name. YHWH. It is simply I am. Now that may seem simple. Well, of course, it's the simplest, but it is the most magnificent. No one else can say, I am. Every breath all of us breathe is dependent on the I am. We don't exist except for the I am. We have no being in us at all except what is given. But the I am is being. So Yahweh, which we hesitate to say the word, we add the vowels, is revealing himself to a mere man, Moses. And this is a high point of the whole Old Testament, what will transpire between YHWH, the I Am, and Moses. He is going to send Moses back to Egypt to rescue his people who have become slaves. Moses, in the circle up at the top, argues with God. Who am I to do this? And God says, I will be with you. Well, who are you? I am who am. But they won't believe me. I will give you powers. I can't speak well. I will put words in your mouth. Send somebody else. All right, Aaron will speak, but you will go. So Moses then reluctantly takes Zipporah and heads back to Egypt. What is the purpose of the great God of the universe? He tells what his purpose is. He wants his people, the people that he has formed from Abraham, to know him. He will deliver them from bondage. He has made promises to their forefathers. Those promises are to be fulfilled. The gods and the kings of Egypt, who so lord it over people, will be judged. Then the world will know the true God, and the traditions begun here will be remembered. All such essential for the fulfillment of salvation history, which we are 1,300 years away from seeing fulfilled at the cross. With this purpose, then, of course, come promises. God, through Moses' intervention, will relieve their burdens. He will deliver them from the evil of the pharaohs. He will redeem his people by his strong arm. They will know that they are his people, my people. They shall know the I Am, and God will bring them to their land. These tremendous promises are made by God through Moses, and he goes back to rescue God's people. In order to do that, he is given powers. At first, the first ones are no better than the magicians of Egypt can also do. They are like little enticements to cause these magicians to exercise what they think they can do. However, as these tremendous supernatural events take place, those magicians are left behind in the dust. We have the list of them there. We see the river turning to blood, then the frogs, the gnats, the flies, the pestilence, the boils, the hail, all the suffering that Egypt is put under by the acts of God, the great darkness. But then, at the 10th of these supernatural events, of course, is the death of the firstborn. This terrible event on Egypt is heralded by Moses telling the people how they are to prepare as God has told him to tell them. There will be a meal. Lambs will be slain. The blood will be put on the doorposts and the lintel of every house where the Israelites live. that the angel of death will pass over. This Passover is the meal that must be eaten, and it will also begin two other important remembrances: the Feast of Unleavened Bread, a 14-day observance when no leaven is used, and then the redemption of the firstborn. Every firstborn, man and beast, must be purchased, so to speak, redeemed, because of the death of all those Egyptian firstborn. And the redemption will be given in the form of some kind of a blood offering. All of this is to be handed on in an oral tradition. There will be no writing of this for many, many hundreds of years, but it will be handed on from father to son, and there are the references of how to pass on this tradition essential to the forming of God's people. Blood will save. We are coming on a long journey back to oneness with God through blood sacrifice. It will be His own Son.